Gao Xianji and Chang Qianli were dazed by Wang Chong's words, but as they began to understand, they fell silent, and the air became oppressive. Chun Bin had served at Wang Chong's side for a very long time. He began fighting side by side with Wang Chong in the southwest, rendering great service, then served Wang Chong during the construction of the City of Steel and in the clashes with Dusong Mangpoj on the Tibetan Plateau, and finally, he led the ballista army at this Battle of Talas. Chun Bin had done everything he could to assist Wang Chong and had been an able subordinate. Wang Chong was not worried about whether Chun Bin would divulge the secret, as this was absolutely impossible for someone of Chun Bin's character. But if he swore an oath to never speak, someone of Du Wuxili's style was liable to kill him. Lord Marquis, what should we do now? Xue Qianjun finally voiced the question on everyone's mind. Chun Bin was very popular amongst the troops, and after fighting alongside his comrades in battle, he would hold a feast and make merry, treating the soldiers like his own brothers. One could easily imagine what they all felt when they heard that Chun Bin had been taken hostage. Come, bring me ink and paper. I want to write a letter to Du Wuxili. I will personally handle this matter. Wang Chong looked eastward, a chilling light in his eyes. Time slowly passed, and as the sun began to sink into the west, the sky darkened. 60 li from Talas, countless wolves wandered the earth. Behind this vast pack of wolves, an enormous banner of a golden wolf on blue fluttered in the air, and behind this banner were countless tents. Du Wuxili had led the Turkic army to set up camp here. With this stage of the battle over, the Turkic army should have been able to relax, but the reality was completely different. The camp was strictly guarded both within and without, the air saturated with tension. How is it? In the white tent in the very center of the camp, Du Wuxili turned to look at one of the shamans accompanying the army. My lord, his injuries are very serious. He was heavily wounded before you even took him hostage. In his current condition, it will be hard for him to take even a few rounds of interrogation, much less torture. Concluded an emaciated shaman, his figure shrouded in a black robe and exuding a thick herbal aroma. He glanced at Chun Bin, laid out on a bed of lambskin with deeply worried eyes. This Tang's body was stained with blood and his clothes were in tatters. His injuries already appeared very serious. And yet his interior was even worse than his exterior. 40% of his bones were broken, his meridians were in chaos, and his internal organs had shifted. Any one of these injuries would eventually be fatal, much less all of them together. Chun Bin propped himself up and jeered. You don't need to waste your time. Ka. No matter what you want to know, I won't tell you. But he was only able to manage these few words before he began to fiercely cough, each time spitting blood which speckled his pale face. You've lost too much blood. If you get any further agitated, you will die. The emaciated Turkic shaman slowly walked over, speaking in an extremely soothing voice. War was a matter for soldiers. This shaman saw only the sick and the healthy. The sight of this Han did not incite any emotions in him. All he saw was an ordinary person. Haha, who cares if I die? If I craved life and feared death, I would have never stepped onto the battlefield. Du Wuxili, don't waste your effort. I won't tell you any secrets about formation phenomena. You should just hurry up and kill me. Chun Bin gave a faint smile, a fearless expression on his face. Even the shaman could not help but feel a hint of admiration toward this dauntless attitude. Humph, you want to die? It's not that easy. Until I get what I want, even dying will be a challenge for you. Du Wuxili's gaze chilled as he strode forward and seized Chun Bin's numb right hand. Rumble. Golden light flashed as majestic energy imbued with boundless vitality surged into Chun Bin's body. Ah! Chun Bin yelled, his body straightening as the enormous vitality flooded through his body. The power of this vitality caused the injuries on Chun Bin's body to heal with astonishing speed. At some point, a magnificent and nearly tangible golden light had engulfed the entire tent. If Du Wuxili wants to save someone, no one can stop him. Obediently confess the secret of formation phenomena to me. Du Wuxili's voice boomed like thunder within the tent. Much later, when night had fallen, Du Wuxili finally emerged from the tent. His face was a little pale, but his expression overall was one of extreme joy. He had consumed a great deal of energy for this tang. Anyone else would think this person extremely unworthy of Wuxia's efforts, but Wuxia thought the exact opposite. In his eyes, this tang represented infinite possibilities for the Western Turkic Khaganate. If he could get the secret of formation phenomena from this tang and then spread this secret through the Western Turkic Khaganate, the Khaganate had a chance of becoming an even stronger existence than Arabia. After all, even though the Arabian warhorses were the best in the world, the Western Turks had far more warhorses. This puny Talas is no longer important. As long as I can get that thing, I will become the war god of the Western Turkic Khaganate. Perhaps I can even go a little farther. Supplanting is a possibility. Wuxia's mind thought of that forbidden word, but it got to his lips and went no further. Until he truly succeeded, Wuxia did not want to leave a single incriminating clue. The winds blew around him, and as he looked up at the dark skies and the glistening stars, Wuxia suddenly felt much more relaxed. Reporting. At this moment he heard a voice. Wuxia's brows creased together as he turned and saw a Turkic messenger rushing toward him. What's all the fuss about? Wuxia said unhappily. Reporting. Great General. A Tang scout was spotted on the perimeter. Our men went to stop him, but we discovered that he fired an arrow at our gate. This was tied to the arrow. The messenger got down on one knee and offered up the arrow and the letter that was tied to it. What? Wuxia's brow rose as his right hand lightly snatched at air. The messenger felt the weight on his hands lighten as the arrow and letter flew into Wuxia's hands. A great general's seal. The large words in red imprinted on the back of the letter caused Wuxia's pupils to constrict and his face to pale. This was not Wuxia's first time interacting with the Great Tang. He had contended the most against Biting Protector General and Sishun, and he was no stranger at all to this seal. This was a seal that only the great generals of the Central Plains could use. In the region of Talas, only one person could use this seal, and this person was not Wang Chong, but Gao Xianxia. It came very quickly. Wuxia was rather surprised. He had expected that it would be quite a few hours before Chen Bin's capture was discovered. He had not expected the letter to come so quickly. These fellows are truly difficult to deal with. A hint of apprehension flitted through his eyes as he opened the letter. Though night had fallen, Talas was still brightly lit. Wang Chong, Li Sai, Huang Batian, Kong Xian, Xue Chenjun, and the other officers of the Qixi Protectorate Army were gathered together. Although Gao Xianxia and Chang Sanyuan had chosen to return to their camp, they had sent Shi Yuanqing to represent them. Both Gao Xianxia and Chang Qianli were in very awkward positions. Chen Bin's capture had to do with formation phenomena, and for them to agree to or oppose any plan was not proper. However, that they had sent Shi Yuanqing to represent them, a man whose status was only beneath theirs, was enough to show the importance they placed on this matter. When the scout responsible for delivering the letter walked into the hall, Li Sai, Kong Xian, Huang Batian, Sun Jiming, and the others began to stand. How was it? Any news? Wang Chong did not stand, but the anxiety in his eyes was enough to show that his concern was no less than the others. Lord Marquis. The scout ignored the others, walking straight to Wang Chong and getting down on one knee. The letter was successfully delivered. I personally fired the letter into the Turkic camp and saw their men take the letter away. But even though I waited outside for a long time, they never sent a reply letter. What? Everyone immediately felt a tug at their hearts upon hearing this news. You're sure that the letter was delivered? Maybe they didn't notice the letter on the arrow? How long did you wait? What if Wuxia was writing a reply and you just happened to miss him? All of the officers began to nervously voice their questions. No, the scout shook his head and respectfully replied. I personally saw them take the arrow out of the gate and remove the letter. I even saw a person rush to the commander's tent to deliver it. Enough! Seeing that the officers in the hall wanted to ask more, Wang Chong finally stepped in. The hall immediately fell silent as everyone looked to Wang Chong. I know that all of you are very worried about Chen Bin's safety, but I hope that all of you can be a little calmer at this time. Since the scout has confirmed that the letter was delivered, the letter must have been delivered. The great Tang scouts don't even fear death. Do you think they can't even deliver a letter? Wang Chong's eyes turned sharp and fierce as they swept over the gathered officers. In a flash, everyone lowered their heads in shame. The scout also gave a sigh of relief, shooting Wang Chong a look of gratitude. The scouts of the Great Tang were the finest in the world, whether it was in strength, experience, loyalty, or commitment to the mission. All of them knew this, but just as Wang Chong had said, their concern for Chun Bin's safety had made them lose their composure. Let me ask you, what did you see in the Western Turks' camp? Tell me every detail, big and small, Wang Chong said. Yes, Lord Marquis. The scout revealed everything he had seen in the Western Turkic camp. The entire reception hall was so quiet as he spoke that one could hear a pin drop. Wang Chong never did anything without a purpose, and no one dared to interrupt him at a time like this. Let me ask you this. When you were delivering the letter, how did the Western Turks react? And how did they react after you sent the letter? Wang Chong asked. When I first arrived, the entire Western Turkic camp was extremely vigilant. The moment I appeared on the perimeter, someone came to stop me. This was no different from if I had probed the camp of any other faction. But around 2 hours after I delivered the letter, a large group of cavalry charged out of the camp and drove me away. It was a completely different attitude from before. Wang Chong's brow shot up at these words, but he made no other comment. I understand. You are dismissed. Yes, Lord Marquis. The scout quickly departed, and the room fell even more quiet. Everyone looked to Wang Chong in anticipation. Lord Marquis, what have you discovered? Xue Qianjun cautiously asked. Right now, we can confirm that Chun Bin is still alive and that he is in the Western Turks' camp. Wang Chong's gaze swept over the officers as he said those long-anticipated words. Whoosh! Everyone instantly exhaled in relief. Their hearts, which had been high-strung with tension, could finally be set back down. Wonderful! If Chun Bin is okay, this is a blessing in the middle of a disaster. Now we just need to find a way to rescue Chun Bin. Lord Marquis, what do you think we should do? The officers excitedly turned to Wang Chong. Although none of them understood how Wang Chong could conclude that Chun Bin was still alive and safe, none of them doubted his conclusion. Everyone sit. Wang Chong spread apart his hands and gestured to the officers. Even though he had confirmed that Chun Bin was still alive, Wang Chong was far less relaxed than his subordinates imagined. This matter is not that simple. Chun Bin might be alive, but Du Wuxia is clearly indicating that he doesn't want to negotiate with us. If my guess is right, he's probably thinking of ways to buy more time in the hopes that Chun Bin will give him the answer he wants. Chun Bin is probably not faring very well right now. Wang Chong's eyes flickered with worry. The joyful officers instantly had a bucket of cold water dumped onto them, their moods sinking. The battlefield was an extremely cruel and callous place where all methods were acceptable. The armies of each faction had their own set of torture and interrogation techniques to extract information from their enemies. If Du Wuxia wanted the secret of formation phenomena, he would definitely be torturing Chun Bin at this moment, a fact which made everyone's hearts frantic with worry. The silent Shi Yuanqing finally stepped forward and spoke. Lord Marquis, the Lord Protector General told me to tell you that if it was needed, we could send people to work with Lord Marquis and sneak into the Turkic camp to save Chun Bin. As long as the method is appropriate, success is completely possible. In short, no matter what, we can't let the secret of formation phenomena fall into the hands of the Western Turks. Lord Marquis, let me go. Li Sai also spoke, his voice as loud as a bell. The Wuxian cavalry under my command should have a good chance of saving Chun Bin. Lord Marquis, me too? I as well. Li Sai's words triggered a chain of volunteers. There's no need. Wang Chong shook his head, rejecting all their proposals. He then turned his head to Shi Yuanqing. General Shi, I appreciate your kindness, but we should think about our plans a little longer. Du Wuxia is no weakling. Since he's been scheming for so long, he's definitely made ample preparations. Moreover, we still don't understand what Huashu Huaizong and Dusong Mangpoj are doing. Carelessly sending troops might lead to us walking into a trap. In the end, we might end up being too clever for our own good. Lord Marquis, I know that you care deeply for your subordinates and do not want to sacrifice any more people, but if Wuxia does obtain the secret of formation phenomena, the effects will not be something that just the 10 some of us here will be able to mitigate, Shi Yuanqing seriously said. The righteous did not grasp for wealth and the kind did not command soldiers. Commanders would occasionally have to make sacrifices. Ha ha! General Shi, you misunderstand. To Shi Yuanqing's surprise, Wang Chong chuckled in response. Chun Bin must be saved, but not through this method. I've already thought everything over. Chun Bin will not divulge the secret, and the more Wuxia can't get what he wants, the more intent he will be on keeping Chun Bin alive. But if we attempt to sneak into the camp to save Chun Bin, we might force Wuxia's hand and put Chun Bin in even more danger. This would be at cross purposes with our actual goal. Ah! Even Shi Yuanqing found himself surprised by this response, momentarily unable to respond. Be at ease. In a while, once Wuxia can't get what he wants, he'll come looking for me on his own. Wang Chong rapped a finger against the table, an assured tone in his voice. After sending off Shi Yuanqing, leaving only the officers of the Qixi Protectorate Army in the room, Wang Chong turned serious. He had appeared self-assured before Shi Yuanqing, but only he knew just how worried he really was. Wang Chong suddenly raised his head and ordered, Li Sai, get ready. Chun Bin can't wait. Gather all the Wuxian cavalry and follow me to meet Wuxia. Li Sai was at first stunned, but he swiftly lowered his head and assented. Yes, Lord Marquis. Rumble. A few moments later, the Wuxian cavalry had gathered and set off for the Western Turkic camp 60 li away under the cover of darkness. Wang Chong's judgment was correct, and Chun Bin's present situation was truly perilous. Although Wuxia would never kill him, Wuxia wouldn't mind using torture to get the secret of formation phenomena, as long as it was not to the point of death. Bastard! A few hours later, Wuxia flicked the blood off his wrists and strode out of his tent, his mouth spitting curses. Does he really think I won't dare to kill him? If you still won't speak, I'll kill and capture another person. I can ask them for the secret of formation phenomena just the same. Wuxia's eyes glowed with anger. As the supreme great general of the Western Turks, Wuxia rarely found a foe he could not deal with. He had even defeated an Sishun, much less any others. But this Tang called Chun Bin had received all manner of torture, yet had still refused to divulge the secret he desired. Wuxia was furious, but also defeated. Wuxia found it impossible to understand how some nameless soldier could be so stubborn, refusing to speak his secrets despite all the torture being inflicted upon him. Wuxia called over the emaciated shaman, his voice one of barely suppressed anger. Treat him. Make sure that not a single wound remains. At sunrise, I need him to be perfectly unharmed so that the interrogation can continue. Yes, my lord, the shaman lightly replied, neither nodding nor shaking his head as he silently walked into the tent. As Wuxia walked out of the tent, laughter came from within, bursting with ridicule and the resolve to die. Ha ha! Wuxia, come. No matter how much torture you inflict, if I say a single word, I wouldn't be fit to be a Han, much less a subordinate of Lord Marquis. Let me tell you, obtaining the secret of formation phenomena is just wishful thinking. Bastard! Wuxia's eyes turned vicious, and his fists creaked and cracked. A surge of killing intent appeared in his eyes for a brief moment, but in the end, Wuxia restrained himself. His muscular and steely fists finally relaxed. I'll let it go a little longer before killing you. With this thought, Wuxia took his leave. Great General, it's bad. As Wuxia began to leave the tent, a cloud of dust and the sound of horse hooves began to approach him. Before his warhorse had even come to a full stop, the rider jumped down and rushed to kneel before Wuxia. The scouts on the front lines have sent a report that a large force of enemy soldiers is rapidly approaching. We estimate their numbers to be 5,000, and they seem very much like the Great Tang's Wuxian cavalry. The scouts are currently working on getting a more detailed report. General Hulanji has sent word asking for Great General to please make a decision. What? Du Sili immediately grimaced at these words. After sending a letter, Wang Chong was now leading an army. Du Sili had not expected his foe's reaction to be so fast. And he was making such a ruckus for just a single subordinate. Pass on my order. Gather the army and have them stand ready for combat. In addition, call the Celestial Wolf Cavalry and have them follow me, Du Sili sternly commanded. In a flash, the Western Turkic camp became harsh and stern. All the soldiers readying to face a powerful foe. The Wuxiang Cavalry. They might not have known of this name 2 days ago, but now all of them knew the name of this supreme fighting force. This was a strength that was even able to defeat the Celestial Wolf Cavalry and the Tibetan Mutri Great Cavalry. Although no one voiced these words out loud, they had all privately begun to wonder if this force was the strongest force of cavalry in the continent. Whoosh! As the golden wolf banner at the front of the Turkic camp blew in the wind, a fully armored Du Sili rode forth on his mighty Turkic steed. Around and behind him were the Celestial Wolf Cavalry wearing their savage armor, and farther behind were the intimidating ranks of elite Turkic cavalry. Under the fluttering banner, the tens of thousands of Turkic cavalry, led by Du Sili, looked in a single direction. The darkness was quiet, as if nothing was happening, but it was permeated with an air of unease. Everyone knew that in that direction, at the very limits of their vision, the illustrious and dreadful Wuxiang cavalry were galloping toward them. A faint rumbling came from the distance, which rapidly intensified until it seemed like it was a vast landslide approaching. Beneath the feet of Du Sili, the ground began to tremble. "They're here," a Western Turkic general suddenly said. There was no need for him to say any more. If one looked in the direction of Talas to the west, one could see a roiling flood of black steel approaching, moving as quickly as lightning. Leading this army was the enormous dragon banner of the Great Tang, which exuded an intimidating aura as it fluttered in the wind. The Great Tang of the Central Plains. This was not the first time the Turks had heard of this country, nor was it the first they had ever fought with them. Before today, they had always regarded this country with a little scorn and disdain. But then, they had seen the Great Tang reverse the tides of this Battle of Talas, sweeping away Abu Muslim and his vast Arab army. Now all of them felt fear and shock. This name now held a completely different weight. Shamask, Chechen Benba, listen for my order. Get ready to fight at any moment, Du Sili said, gazing into the distance. Yes, my lord. The two bowed and affirmed. Shamask in particular was burning with a desire for battle. My lord, be at ease. This general will do his utmost, Shamask declared. In the battle with the Wuxiang cavalry, Shamask had lost all his dignity. This matter was now in the past, but it remained an enormous disgrace for Shamask. He spent every moment thinking of ways to wipe away the smear on his record. Time slowly passed, the atmosphere turning more solemn. As the Turks watched, Wang Chong and his Wuxiang cavalry approached with astonishing speed. 8,000 zhang, 6,000 zhang, 4,000 zhang, 2,000 zhang. Wang Chong finally stopped. The two armies stood in a distant standoff, the air between them saturated with tension. The countless gray wolves in the Turkic camp bared their teeth and prepared to attack. The Turkic elites were even more nervous than the wolves. Their bodies tensed up, their eyes focused, and their sweating hands tightly gripping their weapons. The sight of the Tang sweeping unstoppably through the Arabs had left a deep fear on each of their hearts. In comparison, Wang Chong's Wuxiang cavalry were far more composed and leisurely. Great General, have you thought about my proposal? At a distance of more than 1,000 zhang, Wang Chong rode up on his white-hoofed shadow and cut straight to the point. His sharp voice cut like a knife through the darkness, shattering the silence between the two armies. Humph! Du Sili glared at Wang Chong and rode forward, sweeping his halberd before him. Brat, I have no idea what you're talking about, but there is one thing I know. That you dared to come to my door and find me means that you are so reckless that you have no idea what death is. You escaped me last time, but I'd like to see who can save you now. Du Sili's eyes exploded with killing intent. Wang Chong's strength was insufficient, but he had a mountain of schemes and tricks. His God King Yama transformation only made him a basic great general, yet he had been able to stop a peak great general like Wuxia. The mere mention of this filled Wuxia with shame. Although he was after the formation phenomena, Wuxia wouldn't mind if he could kill Wang Chong in the process. Ha ha ha. Wang Chong heartily chuckled at Wuxia's words. Not only was he unafraid, he even rode a few more steps forward. Since that's the case, great general, why don't you try? Impudent. Wuxia's pupils constricted as his body exploded with rage. Boom! While everyone was still under the impression that the opposing commanders were still exchanging pleasantries, unconsciously believing that they were not yet going to fight, Wuxia suddenly shot forward in a flash of light, creating a sonic boom in the air around him. Wuxia used the celestial wolf's divine procession to transform into a black beam of light that thundered toward Wang Chong. The power behind this attack was terrifying. As his black halberd moved, it cut through the air like it was water, and the air in a radius of several dozen zhang around him began to twist and contort into black fissures that seemed to reach into the underworld. Even more frightening was the destructive energy contained within the halberd. As Wuxia moved forward, he was like a giant plow digging through the earth, and countless rocks and bits of earth exploded in every direction, leaving behind large pits and holes. Great General! Even Shamask and Chekan Benba were alarmed by this abrupt attack. By the time they reacted, Wuxia was already in front of the Tang army, unleashing his heaven-shaking attack on Wang Chong. Lord Marquis. Not good. The Wuxian cavalry were similarly alarmed. No one had expected Wuxia to abruptly attack. But Wang Chong was not surprised at all. Wang Chong faintly smiled as he countered. Boom! In a flash of light and howl of wind, the God King Yama appeared and clashed with Wuxia. For a moment, the entire world seemed like it would tear apart. Enormous shockwaves and explosions forcing the Wuxian cavalry and Turks to back up while covering their ears. A cold snort could be heard amidst the fierce winds, and Wang Chong's God King Yama could be seen standing firm in its position. Wuxia, on the other hand, was forced back a distance before stabilizing himself in the air. Silence. The battlefield was deathly still. Everyone felt their hearts leaping into their throats. That battle had simply been too fast, ending before they had even finished reacting. When one reached the cultivation level of Wang Chong or Wuxia, many soldiers could only look up in fear and admiration. No one besides Wang Chong and Wuxia knew the exact specifics of that battle. This foul brat. As Wuxia sat upon his black divine steed, floating in the air, a sharp and savage killing intent flickered through his eyes. He appeared calm on the outside, but great waves were raging in his mind. He clearly understood what had transpired. Wuxia was one of the strongest great generals of the world, and this point was beyond question. Although he was still a little lacking compared to someone like the governor of Iron and Blood Abu Muslim, he undoubtedly surpassed Wang Chong. But this attack that had contained all his power had been firmly blocked by Wang Chong, and without the use of any technique or skill. In just a day, the God King Yama had ascended to a whole new level of strength. Just what in the world happened? How did this brat's strength rise so quickly? Wuxia clenched his fists in disbelief. In that exchange just now, he had been floating in the air using the celestial wolf's divine procession, not firmly planted on the ground like Wang Chong, so he had been in the more disadvantageous position. But there was no question that Wang Chong's strength had risen to the point where it could equal his own. Wuxia found this simply unacceptable. He could not allow some obscure junior to stand on his level. How was it? Wuxia, do you want to try again? As Wuxia tried to digest this fact, Wang Chong spoke, his expression elegant and natural. Even though he was facing a powerful great general like Wuxia, he felt no fear. After absorbing all the energy of the king of giants Garib Hassam, Wang Chong had reached an astonishing level of power. He was now a true brigadier general, one who was only a sliver away from reaching the great general level. One could easily imagine the power of the God King Yama at this level of strength. Bastard thing! Do you really think I can't kill you? Wuxia leveled his black halberd, contorting the air in a radius of several dozen zhang with torrents of killing intent. Even from a distance, he exuded an aura of dread and terror. Wuxia, I know that you've captured one of my men. Bring him out. If he's missing even a hair on his body, you know what I will do. Wang Chong pretended not to hear. He spoke in a flat tone to Wuxia, but his voice was backed by a powerful threat. In any negotiation, strength was the most basic foundation. Wang Chong might not have had the right to negotiate in Wuxia's eyes before, but in this clash, he had amply displayed his power and gained this right. The winds blew across the battlefield as the Turks and Wuxian cavalry stared at their respective commanders. All of them understood that everything hinged on the conversation between these two commanders. There were no hostilities as of now, but a gruesome battle could ensue at any moment. The atmosphere was tense. Watch his hands, Shamask suddenly whispered. If something looks fishy, Milord will give us the signal. Everyone should attack as soon as the signal is received. Chechen Benba nodded his head. Both of them stared at Wuxia's right palm. After serving Wuxia for so long, they had both come to understand Wuxia's unique habits. He would never issue an obvious call to attack, but would signal his orders using special hand gestures. At that moment, the celestial wolf cavalry would explode forward, catching the enemy off guard. All was quiet as Wuxia stared at the great Tang youth with constantly shifting eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Ha! After some time, Wuxia suddenly chuckled sinisterly. Boy, you think too highly of yourself. Correct. The man you want truly is in my hands. But for what reason do you think I should hand him over? You only brought 5,000 soldiers with you and want to take someone from me? Isn't that a little too simple-minded? Aren't you worried that I will join with the Tibetans and kill you and your Wuxian cavalry? With these last words, the already seething killing intent on Wuxia's body instantly swelled. This nearly tangible killing intent shrouded the air, causing the surrounding temperature to drop. Ha ha ha. Wang Chong was not only unafraid of Wuxia's words, he even laughed. If this were really the case, Daluan Ruozhen, Huashu Huaitsong, and Dusong Mangpoj would have already showed up, not waited this long. If my guess is correct, by hiding the fact that you were after the formation phenomena from them, you've already caused cracks to appear in your alliance. Otherwise, why would you lead your army to set up camp here alone? Buzz. These words seemed to give Wuxia a sharp jab, and his entire body trembled. Although Wang Chong had only been speaking casually, his words had struck true. For his own gain, he had entered the battlefield alone while hiding his true goal, the formation phenomena. But afterward, he was exposed by Daluan Ruozhen, and though the Tibetans had not directly accused him of anything, their relationship was clearly very awkward. This was obvious purely from the fact that the two sides had set up their camps in separate areas. This brat! What a vicious gaze! Wuxia began to unwittingly clench his fists, his joints cracking as his desire to kill Wang Chong increased. Wang Chong's gaze was far too sharp. Wuxia felt like he could hide nothing from him. Brat, you're too proud. Wuxia harshly shot back. No matter what Wang Chong guessed, he would never admit to it. Regardless of what happened between me and the Tibetans, don't forget that it's that great minister of Yusang who wants to kill you the most. If he knew that you only brought 5,000 soldiers, what do you think he would do? Behind Wang Chong, Li Sai, Kong Xian, and Huang Batian all grimaced at these words. Although the Wuxian cavalry were one of the strongest forces in the world and feared no one, the combined might of four mighty individuals like Wuxia, Huashu Huaitsong, Dusong Mangpoj, and Daluan Ruozhen was something that even they would find hard to stop. Interesting. The art of war is the art of deception. Great General is correct. Daluan Ruozhen truly might appear here. But how do you know that I only brought 5,000 Wuxian cavalry? Wang Chong faintly smiled, his expression brimming with confidence. Wuxia grimaced at these words, and his gaze unconsciously flitted past Wang Chong and peered into the darkness. He had believed that Wang Chong had only brought his 5,000 soldiers, but if Gao Xianji and Chang Qianli had also come, the situation was completely different. He needed to rethink his plans. But when he saw that callous ridicule in Wang Chang's eyes, Wuxia understood and flew into a rage. Bastard! Do you really think I can't do anything to you? You value your subordinates, right? Don't think that I won't just kill him and have you leave with nothing. You dare! Wang Chang's expression instantly chilled, and thick killing intent exploded from his eyes. Not even in front of a supreme great general like Wuxia did he try to hide his desire to kill. Clang clang clang. The Wuxian cavalry behind Wang Chong began to pull out their swords and aim them at Wuxia. Haha! Just a nameless soldier. I Wuxia have killed countless such people. There is no one in this world that I would not dare to kill. Wuxia roared in laughter. At his level of cultivation, there was truly nothing he did not dare to do. He was even willing to lose his chance at the formation phenomena if needed. After all, he just needed to capture another person. Bastard! Li Sai, Kong Xian, Chang Sanyuan, and Su Shixian all hollered in rage, their eyes turning red. Wang Chang's eyes were also roiling with killing intent, as not even he had expected to hear these words from Wuxia. But Wang Chong quickly managed to calm down. Very good. Wang Chong looked at Wuxia and sneered. It seems like we no longer have any need to talk. Since you've made your decision, we'll do as you say. But in the future, you will never have another chance to get the formation phenomena. Oh, and I forgot to tell you that I left some soldiers back in Qixi City of Steel. Starting from now, for every Chun Bin you kill, I'll kill 10,000 herdsmen on your Turkic steppe. If you kill 20,000 Turks will be buried with them. Li Sai, let's go. Wang Chong gave the order and prepared to withdraw. At his words, Wuxia paled. The western Turkic Khaganate bordered the Great Tang at Qixi. Many herdsmen and nomads lived on that part of the steppe, and many tribes let their sheep and cows graze there. Ishbara Khagan had once ordered those nomads to withdraw to avoid being caught up in the war with the Great Tang. But the underground rivers flowing through that steppe made the place verdant and lush, so the tribes and herdsmen still decided to graze their herds in that part of the steppe. All the prohibitions were useless. Wuxia had never been some soft-hearted general, and he would not care how many people Wang Chong killed. But these were still the herdsmen of the Western Turks. Wuxia could disregard Wang Chong's actions, but Ishbara Khagan could not. When the fourth prince had been taken hostage, Ishbara Khagan had strenuously objected to exchanging 200,000 warhorses for the prince. But once Wang Chong had ventured into the steppe and killed many people, Ishbara Khagan had immediately agreed. Besides that, a large part of the reason Ishbara Khagan had dispatched soldiers to Talas to assist Daluan Ruozan and the Tibetans was that he was enraged over the Qixi Protectorate Army's slaughter of his people. If Wang Chong chose this moment to once more dispatch men into the Turkic steppe for another round of massacre, and it was made known that this was because of Wuxia, he would be the one to receive Ishbara Khagan's ire. Bastard! Too despicable! Wuxia's eyes spat flame. He was forced to admit that Wang Chong had seized his weak point. In this clash, he had not been able to gain a single advantage. Wait! Wuxia called back Wang Chong. Although he had said that he would kill Chen Bin, this had been nothing more than an empty threat. The secret to formation phenomena was far too important for him to make decisions based on emotion. But just at this moment, Daluan Ruozan, come out! Wang Chong had barely walked a few steps when he stopped and called out into the surroundings. All was quiet, and Wuxia was frozen. The words he had intended to say immediately swallowed back down. Behind him, Shamask, Chechen Benba, and the thousands of Turkic cavalry were equally dumbfounded. Daluan Ruozan? When had he come? How did they not know? Moreover, weren't Daluan Ruozan and the Tibetan army in Camp 20 Li in the rear? Why would they appear here? In the thick darkness, the earth and sky seemed to be one, and the only thing one could make out was a few prominent silhouettes. Just when everyone believed that Wang Chong had made a mistake, all of them heard a familiar voice. Hey, young Marquis, since you've come, why are you in such a hurry to leave? A faint chuckle drifted out of the darkness, not from behind Wuxia, but from behind the 5,000 Wuxian cavalry. As this voice echoed in the air, an elegant and scholarly figure emerged from an area several thousand zhang behind the Wuxiang cavalry. He was flanked by a stalwart figure with a saber slung at his waist, appearing like a guardian god. From another direction emerged yet another Tibetan general, a storm of energy rising from his body. The two groups of Tibetans stood to the left and right, pincering the Wuxiang cavalry between them. If one added in Wuxili's Turks, the three parties had completely surrounded Wang Chong. Daluan Ruozhen, Huishu Huaitsong, Dusong Mangpoj. The sight of those three familiar figures left all the Western Turkic soldiers flabbergasted. Even Wuxili couldn't stop his eyes from twitching. "Great General, I heard from you that a guest would be coming, so I personally came to take a look. Does Great General mind?" Daluan Ruozhen faintly smiled as he walked forward together with Huishu Huaitsong. "I naturally won't object to Great Minister's visit," Wuxili said, his face stiff and awkward. When he had surveyed the area before, he had not noticed any great general figures in the vicinity. Now that he thought about it, Daluan Ruozhen, Huishu Huaitsong, and Dusong Mangpoj must have used the moment when he was fighting with Wang Chong to sneak up. At a moment like this, the person Wuxili wanted to see the least was undoubtedly Daluan Ruozhen. Ha ha! Daluan Ruozhen truly admires great generals' magnanimity. With a smile, Daluan Ruozhen turned to Wang Chong. "Daluan Ruozhen, you really did come." On the other end, Wang Chong, still in the form of the God King Yama, spoke before Daluan Ruozhen could. "Ha ha! I waited for Lord Marquis for half a day." Daluan Ruozhen continued to smile as he walked forward. Rumble! The distant mountains began to shake, and thick smoke began to rise into the sky, obvious even in the darkness. If one peered into the distance, one would see countless cavalry wearing armor of gold and red riding out with astonishing speed from behind the Wuxiang cavalry, their heroic figures wrapped in waves of golden red. The Mutri Great Cavalry. Wang Chong's pupils constricted as he recognized the mighty flood of elite cavalry approaching him. He had not expected Daluan Ruozhen to have also brought this supreme force of cavalry with him on this excursion. The Mutri Great Cavalry, the Celestial Wolf Cavalry, and the three Imperial Great Generals presented enough force to deal a destructive blow to Wang Chong and his 5,000 Wuxiang cavalry. In truth, Daluan Ruozhen was making no attempt to hide his intentions. As he spoke, the encirclement formed from the elite forces of two empires was rapidly closing. At the same time, two heavy and droning streams of energy locked onto Wang Chong. Wang Chong felt his body sink and gave a tiny grimace. But this was not the end, and with a bang, a third stream of great general-level energy flew through the air and locked onto Wang Chong. Wuxili had chosen to join the fray. Although he didn't want to see Daluan Ruozhen and Huishu Huaitsong, Wuxili had chosen without hesitation to work with them. As an imperial great general, he would prioritize the overarching situation. The strategic objective would always surpass individual wants and grudges. "Brat, you can blame no one else. I said before, you are too proud," Wuxili growled. He had originally planned to make a private deal with Wang Chong, but Daluan Ruozhen had completely ruined his plans. Rather than let the other party leave, it was far better to finish him off once and for all. If he could capture Wang Chong alive, that would be the best result. At the very least, it would be far more useful to interrogate him than Qin Bin. The situation was instantly reversed, and the 5,000 Wuxiang cavalry were now in an unprecedented crisis. As Li Sai, Huang Batian, and Kong Xian saw the soldiers and three great generals close around them, all of them began to pale. All of them could smell the odor of death like never before. Ha ha ha! Just when Daluan Ruozhen's trap was complete and the two armies had surrounded the Wuxiang cavalry and were preparing to attack, Wang Chong began to laugh, no tension to be seen on his face. This unusual attitude left everyone dazed. Even Daluan Ruozhen couldn't help but stop. "Daluan Ruozhen, do you really think you can keep me?" Wang Chong's voice was extremely confident, and as his gaze whisked past Daluan Ruozhen, Huishu Huaitsong, and Dusong Mangpoj, a tide of energy surged out from his body. There was no fear on his face, and he appeared to believe that everything had been taken care of. The sight of Wang Chong's expression made Daluan Ruozhen's heart thump in shock. This was not his first clash with Wang Chong, and no one understood more than him just how crafty and hard to deal with he was. His every step was only carried out after long and careful thought. Even though he seemed sloppy and reckless, he was laying traps with every move, and when one was at their most arrogant was precisely when one would fail. Daluan Ruozhen had learned this harsh lesson in the War of the Southwest. Almost instinctively, Daluan Ruozhen looked behind him. But the darkness was quiet and empty. Hee, Wang Chong. I know that you're as crafty as a fox, but I would really like to see how you plan to escape this. 3 great generals and countless elite cavalrymen are here. If you can escape this, I can really call you the war god of the Great Tang. Even Gao Xianxia will have to admit his inferiority. Daluan Ruozhen grinned. Without the slightest warning, Daluan Ruozhen shot a glance at Huashu Huaizong. Speed was paramount in warfare, and a long delay could allow more problems to occur. No matter what tricks Wang Chong had up his sleeve, they were currently too far away to be of any help. If they could kill Wang Chong as quickly as possible, everything would come to an end. A Great Tang without Wang Chong might still be powerful, but in Daluan Ruozhen's eyes, it was no longer worth that much apprehension. Wang Chong, I'm sorry. Even though I wanted to have a contest of strategy with you, in the end, both schemes and martial arts are for the sake of victory. I trust that, if it were me in this situation, you would do the same, Daluan Ruozhen said silently as he looked at the enormous god King Yama. Daluan Ruozhen might have been full of regret, but Huashu Huaizong had no such distractions. Soldiers had a duty to follow orders, and he was never one to doubt Daluan Ruozhen's commands. In a flash, he had pulled out his dazzling golden-red saber and leaped into the air, flying like a shooting star toward the god King Yama. At the same time, a golden light began to explode from Huashu Huaizong, and then this great general of the Ngari royal lineage began to rapidly grow in size. In the blink of an eye, he had become an enormous golden Buddha. The powerful energy raging around it battered at everyone's senses. Bang! Before Huashu Huaizong could arrive, a massive golden Vajra pestle impacted against the dazzling saber energy Huashu Huaizong had unleashed. The world was illuminated in golden radiance. Upon reaching the brigadier general level, all of Wang Chong's stellar energy had become golden, and this clash of stellar energy threatened to tear apart the darkness. Huashu Huaizong's attack acted as the opening curtain for this lethal trap targeting Wang Chong, the rising star of the Great Tang. Boom! Without any warning, Dusong Mangpoj pulled out his saber, his eyes flashing with cold light as he rose from the earth and shot like a blazing comet toward Wang Chong. At the same time, Duwu Sili also moved. He had not obtained the secret of formation phenomena yet and had no desire to kill Wang Chong so quickly, but despite all that, he still made the wise decision. Working together with Huashu Huaizong and Dusong Mangpoj, he attacked Wang Chong. The air howled with a sonic boom as Duwu Sili used the celestial wolf's divine procession to shoot toward Wang Chong like an arrow. In this moment, 3 great generals attacked together, causing the world to tremble in terror at the dreadful power they unleashed. "My lord! Lord Marquis!" On the ground, Li Sai, Kong Xian, and the others all cried out in panic, their faces deathly pale. Shamask and Chekan Benba revealed faint smiles. However, boom! As Dusong Mangpoj flew through the air at Wang Chong, he suddenly heard the earth explode open. An enormous black ape arm rose from the earth, and its palm swatted away Dusong Mangpoj like it was swatting a fly. Roar! The giant ape's bellows caused the earth to shiver. Under countless shocked eyes, this enormous being rose from the earth to fully reveal itself. Wea! The abrupt appearance of this enormous creature made all the Mutri great cavalry recoil in shock and begin fleeing. On the other side, the thousands of Turkic cavalry, including the celestial wolf cavalry, also began to scream as they fell back. Duwu Sili's eyes went wide like he had seen a ghost, and he began to rapidly back up. The consecrated! Duwu Sili felt like he had been struck by lightning, his mind in turmoil and even somewhat at a loss. He had never expected the giant ape to appear before him like this. The ape's offensive and defensive capabilities were far superior to those of any imperial great general. It was simply not something he could deal with, This behemoth was enough to change the course of an entire battle. Most incomprehensible to Du Wuxia was that he had been very careful to ensure that Wang Chong had not brought this giant ape with him. And there was no way Wang Chong would be able to fool him. Not unless… Damn it! As if understanding something, Du Wuxia clenched his fists in anger. But despite his anger and unwillingness, Du Wuxia had no other choice than to temporarily evade the behemoth. Without the assistance of Dusong Mangpoj, he and Huashu Huizong would find it nearly impossible to swiftly kill Wang Chong. If the behemoth were to join the fight, not only would the Western Turkic army suffer heavy casualties, both he and Huashu Huizong would find it hard to protect themselves and were highly likely to die. Boom! In the distance, the giant ape stomped down. Ah! Screams came out of a churning cloud of dust as several dozen Mutri great cavalry were crushed into paste, even their armor being crunched into round metal discs. Du Wuxia grew even more anxious at this sight and immediately called out, "Back! Retreat! All soldiers withdraw! Ha ha ha! Du Wuxia, why are you in such a rush? Didn't you want to attack us just now? Why leave now?" Wang Chong chortled. Boom! As Wang Chong spoke, the giant ape punched, immediately sending shockwaves through the earth. Several dozen Mutri great cavalry were immediately pulverized by the giant ape's fist, while even more were thrown into the air by the intense vibrations. Plush! While still in midair, the chests of these Mutri great cavalry shook and they vomited blood, severe injuries having been inflicted on their bodies. Although the Mutri great cavalry had formidable defenses, they were far from a match for the consecrated, which could injure even great generals. Roar! The giant ape roared as its massive body fell upon the Mutri great cavalry like a dreadful war machine. In a flash, they were sent fleeing in every direction. Retreat! Hurry and retreat! Daluan Ruozen's eyes widened, his expression contorting as it lost all of its former confidence. In a flash, he understood that he had once more fallen into Wang Chong's trap. Daluan Ruozen had never imagined that it was possible to hide such a large ape. But Wang Chong had buried it in advance some distance from the Turkic camp. Only after he had finished preparing this had he led out the Wuxiang cavalry. Daluan Ruozen had only been thinking about dealing with Wang Chong, and had forgotten that Wang Chong had other tricks at his disposal. I was still too careless. As expected, in fighting with him, you can't leave a single thing up to chance. Daluan Ruozen clenched his fists, his face suffused with rage. He had always thought that this operation was too easy, but the thought of killing Wang Chong had dominated his mind. If Wang Chong could be killed, it would have an enormous effect on the Battle of Talas, Yusang, the Western Turkic Khaganate, and all the other countries bordering the Great Tang. All of them would have one less huge threat to deal with. If Wang Chong continued to develop in this manner, in the future, no one would be able to stop him. But in the end, Wang Chong had exploited his momentary greed. Everyone, retreat! Daluan Ruozen's eyes were filled with panic. The giant ape's attacks were far too astonishing, and the several thousand Mutri great cavalry could do nothing against it. Moreover, this time even Daluan Ruozen was in its range. Roar! An enormous fist suddenly began to fly toward Daluan Ruozen. Great Minister! Cries of alarm came from all around, and Daluan Ruozen himself paled. He was astonishingly intelligent and also knew a little martial arts, but this was only in his superb and meticulous control over stellar energy. His true cultivation level wasn't very high at all, at least not up to Huashu Huizong and Dusong Mangpoj's level. Beast, halt! With a furious roar, a curved saber flew through the air to smash into the ape's fist with a thunderous impact. The earth-shattering power of the saber managed to push the giant ape's steely fist several zhang off course. This was the scimitar thrown by the distant Dusong Mangpoj, who had an extremely nervous expression. But Dusong Mangpoj had still underestimated the power of the giant ape in Wang Chong's hands. Rumble! As the right hand was jolted off course, the giant ape raised its left arm and punched at Daluan Ruozen with an equally astonishing power. Buzz! The earth quaked and dust churned several dozen zhang into the air. The ground sank where the fist landed, forming countless cracks and fissures around the impact site. What a pity! In the distance, Wang Chong couldn't help but sigh from within the god King Yama as he watched the ape punch down. Duwu Sili, Huashu Huaizong, and Dusong Mangpoj truly were powerful great generals. But the greatest threat was Daluan Ruozhen. He was the brains of the three great generals, applying their strength where it could be most effective. Daluan Ruozhen had been scheming against him in this operation, but Wang Chong had also been scheming against Daluan Ruozhen. Great Minister, are you okay? In the distance, Huashu Huaizong loosened his grip and scattered the dust on his body with a burst of stellar energy. As he looked at Daluan Ruozhen in front of him, he showed an expression of deep concern and anxiety. At that moment, Huashu Huaizong had sensed that Daluan Ruozhen was in danger and immediately acted to rescue him from under the ape's hand. Huashu Huaizong had managed the Ngari royal lineage together with Daluan Ruozhen for more than 20 years now. The two had shared life and death together, confronting innumerable challenges, and had developed an extremely deep friendship. From a certain perspective, their relationship had transcended that of superior and subordinate and become one of best friends until the very end. I'm fine. Daluan Ruozhen shook his head, his eyes looking past Huashu Huaizong to rest on the distant Wang Chong. In that moment, countless thoughts flitted through his eyes. Daluan Ruozhen was not someone who did not care about his own safety. It was just that he knew that he was safe the moment Huashu Huaizong had appeared. What he was more concerned about at this moment was still Wang Chong. Although the giant ape was invincible, Wang Chong was not. If Huashu Huaizong, Dusong Mangpoj, and Duwu Sili could combine their strengths, they could still kill Wang Chong. But this thought remained in Daluan Ruozhen's mind for only a few seconds before a voice extinguished any hopes of it being realized. Ha ha ha! Dusong Mangpoj, Duwu Sili, Huashu Huaizong. I can't believe that as great generals, the three of you would team up on a single youth. Do none of you have any shame? Come. I, Gao Xianji, will accompany you. A loud voice rose from the distance. At the start, it appeared to be several hundred li away, but in the blink of an eye, its source appeared in everyone's perception. As everyone turned their heads, they saw that the owner of that voice was now several thousand zhang away, arriving with the power of a destructive storm. They could all see several figures approaching at incredible speeds under the faint starlight. The leader had a slender figure and elegant demeanor, as well as an aura that was like an unsheathed sword. Anyone who saw this man would feel insignificant and compelled to pay respect. Gao Xianji. At this sight of this figure, Dusong Mangpoj, Huashu Huaizong, and Duwu Sili all grimaced. Wang Chong and the giant ape were already hard enough to deal with. With the appearance of Western region's war god Gao Xianji, this situation was getting worse and worse. Too powerful. He was clearly severely wounded by Abu Muslim. How did he recover so quickly? Duwu Sili's face was twitching in shock. Even Daluan Ruozhen appeared apprehensive. Judging by the speed and aura of Gao Xianji, he had mostly recovered from his injuries. The Anshi war god was even more powerful than Wang Chong, and if Gao Xianji had appeared, the other elite commanders of the Great Tang were not far behind. If they did not retreat now, they might truly be forced into a fight. Run! Daluan Ruozhen dispelled any thought of dealing with Wang Chong tonight. All the Mutri Great Cavalry began to rapidly withdraw. Just a moment later, a massive Vajra pestle flew through the air and crashed down in front of the Mutri Great Cavalry, the enormous construct of stellar energy thrusting into the earth. Roar! At almost the same time, the giant ape leaped forward with a savage expression. Boom! It landed in front of the Mutri Great Cavalry, blocking their retreat. Crash! An enormous fist crashed down, pulverizing the tensome Mutri Great Cavalry at the very front and sundering the earth. The giant ape proceeded to immediately unleash a barrage of attacks against the Mutri Great Cavalry. Even if there was no chance of stopping great generals like Huashu Huaizong and Dusong Mangpoj, the giant ape was more than enough to deal with the Mutri Great Cavalry. Even if the Mutri Great Cavalry could flee, they would only do so after paying a heavy price. Ah! The horsemen of the famed Mutri Great Cavalry screamed as they were thrown into the air by the giant ape's attacks like blades of grass. In just a few short moments, 200 to 300 of the precious Mutri Great Cavalry had been killed. Kill! This was not the only danger the Mutri Great Cavalry were facing. At almost the same time, Li Sai pulled out his sword, instinctively sensing an opportunity, and rapidly gathered his troops for a charge on the Mutri Great Cavalry. Halt! A thunderous roar suddenly rumbled through the night sky. Brat, do you still want the life of that Chinbin? If you don't stop now, I'll kill him first, and then we can have our battle. Wuxia floated in the air, both shocked and enraged. The giant ape had appeared too abruptly, and now even Gao Xianxia had appeared. The outcome of the battle was still up in the air, but if he did not stop Wang Chong and the giant ape, his own forces would suffer terrible casualties. Buzz! In a flash, the battlefield fell silent. The savage killing machine that was the giant ape suddenly stopped its attacks on the Turks and Tibetans, its scarlet eyes turning to the distant Wuxia. Wuxia, so, you propose a transaction? Wang Chong indifferently said. The battle fell eerily silent as Li Sai, Kong Xian, and all the other soldiers turned to look toward the two commanders. Even Daluan Ruozhen, Huashu Huaitsong, and Dusong Mangpoj turned to look. If Wang Chong was so well prepared, then this was a poor time for a battle. But now, the only people who could stop it were Wuxia and his hostage Chinbin. I said nothing of the sort. Wuxia's eyes narrowed as he quickly regained his composure. In front of so many people, he would never admit to such a thing. Wang Chong only smiled and gave Wuxia a profound glance. Wang Chong, this is an extremely rare opportunity. No one knows when the giant ape will die. While it's still useful, this is the best chance to use it to finish off the Western Turks and Tibetans. A soft voice suddenly spoke into his ear as Cheng Qianli and Gao Xianxia arrived at his side. The Mutri Great Cavalry saw this pair and began to back away with fear in their eyes. The reputation of a man was like the shadow of a tree. No one did not know the name of the Anshi Protectorate Army's commander, and even the Mutri Great Cavalry somewhat feared him. There's no hurry. The giant ape has already killed some Mutri Great Cavalry, and they're a bit more prepared now, making wiping them out nearly impossible. The only ones who can move at this time are Wuxia and his Turkic cavalry. But the giant ape isn't even needed to deal with these ordinary Turkic soldiers. When we go to save Chinbin, we can wipe them out all the same, Wang Chong confidently said. Now was truly an excellent chance to further reduce the fighting power of the Western Turks and Tibetans. However, the giant ape could only kill for 2 or 3 days before dying, whereas Chinbin's influence on the army was much more long-term. Under his command, the ballista army would be able to kill far more enemies than the giant ape. This is fine. Cheng Qianli hesitated for a moment before giving a nod. Wuxia will do as you wish. I can withdraw my troops now, but remember, the 3rd quarter of the noon period is the last time we can make our transaction. Bring Chinbin to me unharmed, and you still have one last chance to get the secret of formation phenomena from me. But if there is no transaction at the 3rd quarter of the noon period, I will not agree to any transaction regarding formation phenomena. In addition, if Chinbin is not returned to my camp by that time, we will have our vengeance. Wuxia, you will pay 100 times the price. Let's go. With a cold snort, Wang Chong turned his head and led his army away. This time, no one stopped him. Not Wuxia nor Daluan Ruozhen and company. All the Mutri Great Cavalry had scattered, naturally yielding them the path. In the end, all of them remained still until Wang Chong's army had disappeared into the darkness. Great General! Once Wang Chong was gone, Daluan Ruozhen turned with a faint smile to Wuxia. This simple smile made Wuxia's heart jump with ill foreboding. In truth, the people from whom he most wanted to conceal the fact that he had taken Chinbin hostage were Daluan Ruozhen and Huashu Huaitsong. Otherwise, he would have never acted out such a play to conceal his motives. But the plans of men were no match for the plans of heaven, and one could not count on any luck or fortune when dealing with someone like Daluan Ruozhen. Not only had Daluan Ruozhen exposed his plan, he had forced Wuxia into an extremely passive position. Great Minister! Wuxia called out as he stepped forward with a bold face. Ha! I just so happened to hear that Qixi Protector General mentioned something about formation phenomena. If Great General had a lead on such a wonderful thing, Great General should have informed us ahead of time. Perhaps Huashu and I could have assisted in Great General's scheme, and the formation phenomena would have already been ours. Daluan Ruozhen gestured at Huashu Huaitsong and Dusong Mangpoj, and the two great generals as well as the Mutri Great Cavalry merged together and rode up to Duwu Sili. Duwu Sili instantly paled at Daluan Ruozhen's words. Daluan Ruozhen had spoken in a roundabout fashion, but his meaning was obvious. He also wanted a share of the secret of formation phenomena. This was exactly what Duwu Sili had hoped to avoid. Although the Western Turks and Tibetans lived on very different altitudes, they were both steppe countries that lived a primarily nomadic lifestyle. Both empires also emphasized cavalry. If Duwu Sili could get his hands on the secret of formation phenomena, he could overturn the Western Turkic Khaganate and reforge it into an even stronger Turkic Khaganate. Thus, there was no doubt that Daluan Ruozhen could do the same with Yusang. Great Minister truly has excellent eyes. As expected, nothing can be hidden from Great Minister. Even if Great Minister did not bring up this matter, I was prepared in a little while to tell Great Minister myself. Alas, that boy is just too crafty. Although he was extremely reluctant, Duwu Sili could only force himself to say these words. Although Daluan Ruozhen was insignificant as a martial artist, he was a master of scheming that even Duwu Sili would find hard to deceive. Now that Daluan Ruozhen had discovered what was going and forced Duwu Sili into a passive position, it was better to just confess. What Great General says is true. After all, this is the Tang Emperor's personal disciple. He truly is difficult to deal with. Daluan Ruozhen faintly smiled, exuding a superior bearing. Daluan Ruozhen didn't believe a single word out of Duwu Sili's mouth. But both of them had decided wisely to overlook this point. As long as Duwu Sili was willing to share, Daluan Ruozhen didn't really care about the trivialities. After exchanging a few more pleasantries with Duwu Sili, Daluan Ruozhen left with his men. Once Daluan Ruozhen had left, Chechen Benba finally blurted out in anger. "My lord, Daluan Ruozhen says that Wang Chong is crafty, but he's probably the craftiest of them all. We were the ones to plant the trees, but he's done nothing and is now plucking the fruit. This is too despicable." "That's right. These Tibetans are truly too much. Do they really think they own us?" Shamask agreed, his face similarly contorted in rage. But Shamask had barely finished speaking when a hefty slap sent him staggering. Shamask covered his cheek, dumbstruck. "Bastard thing." Duwu Sili's expression as he looked at Shamask was ice-cold. "If you hadn't put on such a disappointing performance and lost to a Tang at only the imperial martial realm, putting on a farce for the Tibetans to see, they wouldn't be acting so arrogantly." Shamask turned red in shame. His mouth opened and closed, but he could not find a single word to defend himself. Duwu Sili ignored Shamask. With a flick of his sleeve, he rode back to his camp. 10 some li from the Western Turkic camp, Daluan Ruozhen and Huashu Huaitsong were leading the Mutri Great Cavalry back to their own camp. Duwu Sili appeared to be very unwilling. Huashu Huaitsong suddenly said, "It would be far stranger if he were willing. In this transaction for the formation phenomena, we were the ones he was guarding against." Daluan Ruozhen replied with a light smile. "But now, whether he wants it or not, it's no longer his decision," Dusong Mangpoj commented. Daluan Ruozhen's schemes were always closely linked together. If tonight's plan had been a success, Wang Chong would be dead. But if the plan failed, he could exploit the situation against Duwu Sili, and even though Duwu Sili would be extremely unwilling, he would be compelled to agree. Dusong Mangpoj had to express his admiration. "But the matter of formation phenomena is no minor affair, and our two empires are too similar. A mountain can't hold two tigers. Will someone of Duwu Sili's style really be willing to give the secret to us?" Dusong Mangpoj suddenly asked. The army fell quiet, and Daluan Ruozhen suddenly stopped. Everyone immediately took notice of this, and Huashu Huaitsong, Dusong Mangpoj, and all the Mutri Great Cavalry stopped as well, their eyes focusing on Daluan Ruozhen. "Hee, willing or not, won't we know when the time comes?" With a soft chuckle, Daluan Ruozhen urged his horse into a gallop. Huashu Huaitsong and Dusong Mangpoj glanced at each other before following. In the noon period, the sunlight scorched the earth. An enormous dragon banner fluttered on the eastern side of Talas, upon the high hills. Wang Chong stood under the dragon banner with Gao Shenji, Chang Qianli, the other Tang generals, and the Wuxian cavalry, silently looking to the east. Lord Marquis, will Duwu Sili come? Xue Qianjun suddenly said, shattering the silence. He looked up to the sky, worry slowly creeping into his eyes. In the sky, the sun was slowly reaching the third quarter of the noon period. This was the last possible time for the transaction Wang Chong had proposed. But there was still no sign of Duwu Sili or Chen Bin. Relax. He will come, Wang Chong nonchalantly said. The calm tone soothed Xue Qianjun and the other officers, lessening their worries. This conclusion did not arise from blind faith, nor out of trust in Duwu Sili, but from careful analysis. After fighting for so long with Chen Bin, Wang Chong well understood that Chen Bin would rather die than divulge any secrets. Duwu Sili was too greedy, so once he failed to get what he wanted from Chen Bin, he would have probably proposed a deal on his own. Look at that! Someone suddenly pointed into the distance. The ground began to tremble, and dust began to rise from the horizon. A vast army suddenly surged out from the horizon like a mighty flood. It's the Western Turks. No, there's also the Tibetans. The Tang soldiers began to buzz with chatter. Two banners could be seen flapping in the wind. One was that of a golden wolf on blue, and the other was a white yak on black. The mood instantly turned grim. The several days of fighting had made the Tang very familiar with the tactics of the Tibetans and Turks. The Mutri Great Cavalry were in the middle of the vast army, riding in orderly ranks, their armor shining in the sun. At a distance of around 2,000 zhang from Wang Chong's group, Duwu Sili's and Daluan Ruozen's forces stopped. Their gazes swept over Wang Chong's group and then over the hills, quickly falling upon the giant ape. What? Why isn't this beast dead yet? Duwu Sili's face was a mixture of vexation and fear. The Arabs had used 4 behemoths in the previous battle, and 3 of them were now dead, leaving only this giant ape, but for some reason, it continued to struggle on. In terms of pure strength, no one on this battlefield was a match for this ape, not even Duwu Sili. For this reason, Duwu Sili did not dare lead his army too close. Moreover, he had them ready to retreat at any moment to avoid being ambushed by this beast. Great General, let's go. Daluan Ruozen smirked as he spoke. Duwu Sili hesitated for a moment, but he overcame his reluctance to give a nod. Hiya! Duwu Sili patted the back of his horse and broke away from the rest of his army. Daluan Ruozen, Huashu Huaizong, and the others followed closely behind him. Lord Marquis, they've brought Chen Bin, Li Sai suddenly announced. From his vantage point on the hills, he had seen Chen Bin on the back of Duwu Sili's horse, recognizing him instantly even though Chen Bin was tied up and blindfolded. After a few moments of silence, Gao Shenji said, he seems to be okay. Although he has some flesh wounds, he overall doesn't have many problems. From the moment Duwu Sili had appeared, Gao Shenji had been observing Chen Bin. With his level of cultivation, he could see at a glance whether Chen Bin was heavily injured. Wang Chong nodded and then urged his horse forward. Let's go. We should complete the exchange for Chen Bin. Under the blazing sun, Wang Chong and Duwu Sili met in the center of the two forces, 1,000 zhang from each side. At this moment, the atmosphere was grim, everyone watching Wang Chong and Duwu Sili with bated breath. Boy, I've brought the hostage. Where is the secret of the formation phenomena that I want? Duwu Sili coldly said as he stared at Wang Chong 10 paces away. Although he appeared normal on the surface, he could not hide all of his vexation and anger. Ever since he had taken Chen Bin hostage, Duwu Sili had used every method at his disposal in the hopes of getting the secret of formation phenomena from Chen Bin. But despite his efforts, Chen Bin had not said half a word. In the end, all he had heard from Chen Bin was jeers and ridicule. Given Duwu Sili's temper, he wanted nothing more than to put Chen Bin to death by 1,000 cuts to vent his rage. But Wang Chong's parting words had left him apprehensive, so much so that after interrogation, He had expended a great deal of energy to treat Chan Bin's wounds. Wuxia had already spent more than 20 years pursuing the secret of formation phenomena. This secret was far too important to him. He could not permit a single mishap. Lord Marquis, don't give the formation phenomena to him. This subordinate's life is not important, but no matter what, he cannot be allowed to succeed. Chan Bin suddenly pleaded. He was blindfolded and unable to see what was going on. But he had been carefully listening all this time. Chan Bin had endured for so many days and suffered so many tortures to prevent Wuxia from achieving his goal. But if Wang Chong agreed to a deal with Wuxia, all his efforts would be for naught. Silence! With a jab of his finger, Wuxia sent out a stream of stellar energy that sealed off Chan Bin's 4 limbs and his voice. Wang Chong, I've brought the hostage. You're not suddenly going to say that your words don't count, are you? Wuxia already wanted to kill Chan Bin. What he feared the most was that Wang Chong would change his maid and cancel the transaction. Wuxia, my words are naturally valid. But you should also remember what I said last night. Completely. Unharmed. Wang Chong coldly said. Brat. Don't try to act clever after already getting a deal. When I captured your subordinate in the middle of battle, he was already on death's door, struggling for his last breath. This had nothing to do with me, but with your battle with the sky-quaking giants. I wasted a great deal of energy to treat your subordinate. This should at least be worth a thank you, Wuxia said. Wang Chong's brow rose as his gaze flitted over Chan Bin. The sky-quaking army had been fired into the Tang army by catapult, and the giant ballistae guarded by Chan Bin and Su Kai were the primary objective of the sky-quaking giants. Wang Chong was well aware of this. Wang Chong needed only a glance to see that Wuxia was not lying, and his expression relaxed. Very good. Wuxia, my words have always been trustworthy. The secret to formation phenomena is here. Hand over my subordinate. Wang Chong faintly smiled as he reached into his bosom, gripped a thin sheet of white paper between 2 fingers, and held it high into the air. The mood suddenly changed. Wuxia stared at the folded sheet of paper, his eyes ablaze. Even the nearby Daluan Ruozhen behind him tilted his head slightly upward, regarding the paper with a serious expression. Daluan Ruozhen had managed to maintain an attitude of indifference all this time, but for Yusang, obtaining the true secret of formation phenomena was a temptation nigh impossible to resist. Time seemed to slow down for a moment, even breathing becoming rough and heavy. The ordinary sheet of paper between Wang Chong's fingers had instantly become the indisputable center of attention. Though Chan Bin had been muted and his body restricted, he could still hear very well. He could not say anything to Wang Chong's words, but his body began to visibly shake. Wang Chong flourished the paper and warned, Wuxia, this opportunity only comes once. Have you still not finished thinking it over? Everyone came back to their senses as if waking from a dream. Formation phenomena. These were what Wuxia had pursued his entire life. And now, they were only a few steps away. Wuxia found it nearly impossible to remain calm, and as he looked at the paper, his eyes glimmered with desire. Without hesitation, Wuxia almost unconsciously reached for Chan Bin. Wait! Just when he was about to hand over Chan Bin, Wuxia stopped and regained his composure. Boy! How do I know that what you give me is real? The air seemed to freeze, the frenzied desire dying away, replaced by cold and calm eyes. Correct. Wang Chong alone fully understood the secret to formation phenomena. No one could know if what he provided was real or fake. No one would be able to tell if Wang Chong was fooling them with fake information. Wuxia was no fool. He could not ignore this possibility. Wang Chong faintly smiled. Under the covetous gazes of the crowd, he slowly put away the paper, his expression confident and assured, as if he had already predicted this situation. Wuxia was a suspicious person. An imperial great general of this level was not that easy to trick. I knew that great general would not so easily trust me. With a flick of his wrist, Wang Chong threw out another sheet of paper. Bolstered by stellar energy, this thin sheet of paper was no different from steel. Phui! With a shrill whistle, the paper turned into a white ray of light that shot straight at Wuxia's face. Perplexed, Wuxia extended his fingers and almost unconsciously took this paper. "What is this?" Wuxia said in confusion. Dalun Ruozhen and Huoshu Huizong also turned to look. No one knew what exactly Wang Chong had written on these 2 sheets of paper. This paper records a part of the secret to formation phenomena. Wuxia, you have 7,000 celestial wolf cavalry under your command. Pick 60 and have them practice according to the method on the paper. You'll know very quickly if it's real or fake. These words were a great surprise to everyone. Even Wuxia had not expected this kind of move. Dusong Mangpoj frowned and whispered, "Great Minister, what's going on?" "I don't know. Just keep watching," Dalun Ruozhen said, his brow creased. This matter was developing somewhat differently from what he had predicted. Even he found it somewhat difficult to understand Wang Chong's current actions. In front, Wuxia did not appear nearly as troubled. After giving Wang Chong a profound glance, he waved a hand behind him. 60 celestial wolf cavalry quickly galloped up from the rear, fully armored and brimming with energy. "Practice according to what's written on here." Wuxia only glanced at the paper before passing it to a celestial wolf cavalry officer. "Yes, my lord." The 60 celestial wolf cavalry quickly got to work, taking up formation and practicing according to the method written out on the paper. All was quiet as everyone watched the 60 celestial wolf cavalry. Dalun Ruozhen, Huoshu Huizong, Wuxia, everyone was focused on them. Wang Chong alone silently watched with a smile. As one of the world's supreme forces of cavalry, the celestial wolf cavalry were some of the best in the world in terms of strength, experience, and comprehension. They were capable of putting into practice Wang Chong's formation phenomena in the shortest possible time and with the greatest efficiency. Minute by minute, second by second went by, and the 60 celestial wolf cavalry quickly finished their practice. Each one of them was now subtly different. The celestial wolf cavalry officer rode over to Wuxia and respectfully said, "My lord, we're ready." Wuxia quickly scanned his men, and a look of shock flitted through his eyes. He had initially paid little attention to the paper that Wang Chong had sent over, but upon seeing the changes in his 60 celestial wolf cavalry, he was forced to alter his view. The contents of the paper now seemed much more likely to be true. He could clearly sense that the aura of his men had become much steadier and more composed after practicing the method laid out on the paper. Not even someone with Wuxia's insight and experience had seen a technique elicit such a major change in the celestial wolf cavalry in such a short time. "Begin," Wuxia ordered with a wave of his hand. Unwittingly, he had begun to feel a tinge of anticipation. Boom! The 60 celestial wolf cavalry took formation and began to gallop into the distance. After traveling 100 meters, the celestial wolf cavalry officer gave a shout. Suddenly, the formidable power of the world pierced through the void and fused the energies of the 60 celestial wolf cavalry into one. Clang! The 60 celestial wolf cavalry took out their weapons and pointed them to the sky. Rumble! To everyone's shock and awe, they could hear the rumbling of thunder in the sky. 30 meters above the celestial wolf cavalry, black wisps of clouds began to gather. In a flash, this phenomenon disappeared, but everyone present, whether it was Wuxia or Dalun Ruozhen, appeared stunned. Formation phenomena. Although it was just the crudest version and had only lasted for a brief moment, it was truly the highest state of power a formation could achieve. No one had expected that Wang Chong could have the power of formation phenomena manifest with only 60 celestial wolf cavalry. Shock! Everyone was speechless at this sight, and the solemn atmosphere turned strange. Even Dalun Ruozhen had a different look in his eyes. Wuxia, how was it? Wang Chong drew back his gaze and grinned at Wuxia. Wuxia deeply gazed at Wang Chong, and then he suddenly laughed. "Boy, you truly are a lucky one. There's actually someone willing to exchange formation phenomena for your life." With his right hand, Wuxia tore apart the black cloth blindfolding Chun Bin. At the same time, his other hand unsealed Chun Bin's limbs and voice. "Lord Marquis." "No. You can't give the formation phenomena to him. The moment he opened his eyes, Chun Bin began to shout and yell, his voice both anxious and angry. The matter of formation phenomena was extremely important, and he had remained steadfast against endless pain and torture to prevent the secret from falling into Wuxia's hands. But if Wang Chong gave the secret of formation phenomena to Wuxia, all his efforts would have been in vain. Wuxia, I'll never let you succeed. Seeing that the transaction was about to be completed, Chun Bin became resolved, his eyes flashing with determination as he fiercely bit down on his tongue. But before he could bite down and end it all, a steely palm firmly grasped his lower jaw. You want to commit suicide in front of me? Wuxia coldly chortled as he spoke into Chun Bin's ear, and Chun Bin felt his heart sink like a stone. Wuxia turned his head to Wang Chong. Wang Chong, you have guts. As long as you give me the true formation phenomena, I will return your subordinate. What do you think? Okay. Wang Chong faintly smiled, his bearing not one bit inferior to the celestial wolf great General Wuxia. I will give the first half of the secret to formation phenomena to you. Once you release my subordinate, I will give you the other half. Wang Chong immediately removed the previous sheet of paper and flicked it at Wuxia. Wuxia stretched out his hand and took it. This time, however, Wuxia unfolded the paper and carefully read it over. After a while, Wuxia took the first sheet of paper from the Celestial Wolf Cavalry officer and began to carefully compare them. During this process, everyone remained silent in anticipation of his answer. Incredible! I had always believed that the secret to formation phenomena was lost. To think that I would find the highest secret of formations in a place like Tala's. Wuxia's mind was raging as he gripped the two papers. As one of the three most powerful great generals of the Western Turkic Khaganate, Wuxia possessed an insight and breadth of experience that no normal person could compare to. Things like gold, jade, or beautiful women would find it very difficult to move his heart. Even the finest weapons would do little to stimulate his desires. But these two sheets of paper that probably weren't worth more than 2 taels of silver made his heart thump madly in his chest. Formation phenomena. Wuxia had sought out this secret for more than half his life, but now he held the secret in his hands, and only the last part was missing. With his experience and knowledge, he could tell at a glance that Wang Chong had given him the real thing. In those words, he could sense the profundity of the great Tao and the principles of the world. It was impossible for Wang Chong to have fabricated this in such a short amount of time. No one could fabricate such words. The level of understanding and theory in these words had clearly surpassed Wuxia's celestial wolf illusory formation and could make any formation on the continent appear dim and lightless in comparison. Most importantly, all the words flowed smoothly together, each concept linking cleanly to the next with no flaw or error. If techniques like this could be fabricated in a single night, Wuxia would still have to throw himself to the ground in admiration. Even if it was fake, he would still admit defeat. This would only mean that he, Wuxia, was too blind and that he had deserved to be deceived. Or perhaps 3 or 4 months ago, Wang Chong had predicted that he would come to Tala's, knew that he would crave the secret of formation phenomena, and then used a great deal of time and painstaking effort to create this fake secret of formation phenomena to deal with him. But that was just a little too absurd. Boy, I can give you the hostage. Wuxia raised his head, smiling as he put away the 2 sheets of paper. But how do I know that the second half is real and you haven't pulled any tricks? If it was fake, wouldn't all my efforts be for naught? At this moment, Anshi Vice Protector General Chang Qianli finally butted in, no longer able to endure this conversation. Wuxia, you're a little paranoid. We already gave you the first half and you've seen the power of the formation phenomena for yourself, but you still haven't handed over the hostage. How do we know you will release him? If we give you everything but you don't hand over the hostage, won't we be the ones suffering an even greater loss? The great Tang's side had already displayed enough sincerity, but Wuxia seemed to want even more, getting an inch and demanding a foot. Haha, Wuxia, if you haven't seen it, you naturally won't know. Wang Chong finally spoke, his expression relaxed as if having long known that Wuxia would ask this question. The second half might be fake or it might be real. Du silly, you have a paranoid personality, and I'm not prepared to persuade you. You can choose to stop the transaction. I don't get my subordinate and you don't get the formation phenomena, and we both go away empty-handed. But you can also choose to believe in me and take a risk. In this way, I can get my subordinate and you can get the true formation phenomena. Make your choice. Du silly's expression froze. He had never expected Wang Chong to so frankly admit that the second half could be fake. He was caught off guard and now didn't know how to choose. If he had heard these words from Wang Chong earlier, he would have turned around and left. But now that he had seen those two papers regarding the formation phenomena and seen the vast horizon and enormous power within, Du silly found it very difficult to look away. Boy, you're getting too conceited. I've already received 2 parts of the secret to formation phenomena. If you dare say such words to me, are you not afraid that I'll just kill him now? Du silly slowly turned his head to Chun Bin as he spoke, his eyes growing cold. His fingers slowly began to clench, power slowly traveling to the tips. With just a single move, he could shatter all of Chun Bin's bones and kill him. Heh! Du silly. Chun Bin is my subordinate and I value him highly, but to you and the Western Turks, he's just an insignificant nameless soldier. To exchange the life of a nameless soldier for the secret of formation phenomena. Du silly, you're already getting quite the deal. Are you really willing to kill him? Wang Chong grinned, his sharp eyes cleaving like swords into the deepest parts of Du silly's mind. Daluan Ruozen's eyes flickered at these words, a flash of curiosity and interest in their depths. Du silly still did not understand Wang Chong that well. Debating with him, even Daluan Ruozen was no match for him, so how could Du silly be? Ha ha. Okay. Du silly laughed and made the choice that Daluan Ruozen had expected. Boy, I can make a deal with you, but we'll hand off at the same time. I'll count down from 3 and at 1, I'll throw your subordinate to you and you'll throw what I want to me. We'll act at the same time, and no one is permitted to play any tricks. If I discover that what you've given me is fake, I'll first kill Chun Bin, and then I'll slaughter all your subordinates. Haha, of course. If I discover that you haven't let him go or plan to kill him midway, I'll destroy the paper and make it so that you'll never get a chance to learn the secrets of formation phenomena. This is the first and last time I'll make a deal with anyone. Wang Chong chuckled and waved his sleeve. In the end, Du silly had been unable to resist the allure of formation phenomena. But as long as he could save Chun Bin, it was all worth it. In the end, Wang Chong and Du silly, the commanders of the Great Tang and the Western Turks, reached an agreement. But not only did the atmosphere not relax, the tension was turned up to the maximum. Qianli, get ready. If something looks wrong, immediately move to stop Du silly and save Chun Bin. Everyone was so focused on Wang Chong and Du silly that little attention was paid to Gao Xianji, who had been silently observing the entire situation from behind Wang Chong. At this moment, his lips moved as he used a message transmission technique to whisper into Chang Qianli's ear. Wang Chong and Du silly had genuinely reached an agreement, but few people noticed that endless killing intent was seething beneath the calm surface. Du silly and Wang Chong had agreed to exchange after counting down from 3. In that instant, Wang Chong could only succeed if Du silly was focused on taking the paper recording the method of formation phenomena, convinced that it was the real thing. But if Du silly thought that he had been tricked or that Wang Chong wasn't going to give him the real thing, he would definitely turn and kill Chun Bin. If that happened, Chun Bin would be doomed. Moreover, Chun Bin was already right next to Du silly, so even Gao Xianji would find it very difficult to save him. Understood. Chang Qianli gave an almost imperceptible nod, a grim look on his face. 3. A weighty and steely voice thundered through the skies. With this voice, the exchange between Wang Chong and Du silly had begun. The atmosphere suddenly became somber and grim. Cack-lack. The joints of Du silly's fingers cracked as he grasped Chun Bin's neck. His expression was cold and sinister, completely different from when he was negotiating with Wang Chong. Cack-lack. Du silly placed his other hand behind him, its joints also crisply cracking. Not far behind him, Shamask and Chekan Benba suddenly tensed up, their expressions turning solemn as their gazes passed over Wuxia's hand. 2. As Wuxia's countdown reached 2, the atmosphere grew even more solemn. Nobody moved, but an invisible tension began to spread through the air. Everyone's eyes turned sharp, all signs of relaxation vanishing. At this moment, Wang Chong suddenly removed the third and last sheet of paper from his bosom. The snow-white paper was extremely thin. Under the sunlight, one could faintly make out lines upon lines of handwriting. Wuxia blinked for a moment. He seemed to be forced to look over by some invisible attractive force, and many others turned to look with him. Formation phenomena. Only by obtaining this last sheet of paper would the secret be truly complete. Formation phenomena represented the supreme realm of formations. This was not some simple mantra or powerful formation. If one could comprehend its secrets, the famed celestial wolf illusory formation of the Western Turks would reach an even higher level and be capable of creating its own formation phenomena. At that time, the celestial wolf cavalry were certain to be even more unstoppable, and the great scarlet sun formation of Yusang was on the same level of the celestial wolf illusory formation, having not reached that highest level. The secret of the formation phenomena would also allow the Tibetans to raise the formation to an even higher level and create formation phenomena belonging to the great scarlet sun formation. No one could resist this sort of temptation. Great Minister! Far back in the rear, several Zhang from Huashu Huaitsong and Dusong Mangpoj, Huaba Senji blinked and licked his lips in desire. Although he had come to wipe out the Wuxian cavalry, take his revenge, and maintain the reputation of the Yusang Empire's cavalry, if he could get the secrets of formation phenomena and bring his great scarlet sun formation to an even higher level, why wouldn't he? After all, the Tibetan plateau also had legends of supreme formations. 1. The final moment had arrived. In this tense atmosphere, Wang Chong, Wuxia, Gao Xianji, Huashu Huaitsong, and all the others were like taut bowstrings, their muscles all tightening up. Bang! The air thundered. The first to move was not Wuxia, but Wang Chong. In a flash of white light, the final sheet of paper broke free of Wang Chong's palm. However, this paper was not fired at Wuxia, but at an angle in a direction where no one was present. Wuxia's eyes widened as he followed the paper. He seemed calm on the surface, but he had unwittingly begun to show a tiny hint of tension. He could see that there was a ball of light in Wang Chong's hand, aimed at the paper in the air, ready at any moment to destroy this last part of the secrets pertaining to formation phenomena. Bang! With a flick of his wrist, Wuxia almost immediately pushed Chen Bin from the back of his horse. Wang Chong, I give you your man, and you give me the secret of formation phenomena. As his voice rumbled through the air, Wuxia also tossed Chen Bin at an angle, in almost the complete opposite direction from where Wang Chong had thrown the paper. If Wang Chong wanted to save Chen Bin, he would not have the time to destroy the third paper recording the secrets of formation phenomena. Similarly, if Wuxia wanted the formation phenomena, he could not kill Chen Bin. It was clear that both Wang Chong and Wuxia had thought about this point. Boom! In flashes of light, Wang Chong and Wuxia both shot into the air. One lunged at Chen Bin while the other lunged at the third sheet of paper. Clashes of experts were decided in mere seconds, and for experts of their level, far too much could happen in a single second. The urgent task at hand was to get their hands on what they had come for. Wang Chong, eat my halberd! Wuxia rejoiced to see Wang Chong lunge at Chen Bin. The moment the two passed by each other, when they were at their closest, Wuxia immediately poured all his stellar energy into his black halberd and fired off a furious black dragon at Wang Chong. At almost the same moment, the air howled as Wang Chong transformed into the god King Yama. Bang! One of its left palms blocked the attack from Wuxia's black halberd, while the enormous Vajra pestle in one of its right hands swung at Wuxia. Move! In this moment, Wang Chong and Wuxia were far from the only ones to take action. Shamask and Chekan Benba had been staring at Wuxia's left hand this entire time, and when they received the signal, these two brigadier generals of the Western Turkic Khaganate jumped at Chen Bin like hungry tigers. The more Wang Chong cared about him, the more obvious it was that Chen Bin was extremely important. Moreover, if they killed Qinbin, they would deal a massive blow to the morale of the Tang army. For this reason, it was worth it for the two of them to strike as one and kill Qinbin. Shameless! You would dare! With a furious roar, Chang Qianli shot out from Wang Chang's side, his eyes flashing with cold light as he rushed to Qinbin. The battlefield instantly became extremely tense. But the greatest variable in this transaction was still the ever-silent Gao Xianji. There are some things that don't belong to you. Duwu silly, you can stop dreaming now. A cold and dignified voice resounded in everyone's ears. Boom! Gao Xianji exploded forward, his speed surpassing everyone else's. The moment he entered the fray, all the countless experts on the battlefield appeared insignificant before his tremendous storm of energy. Damn it! Duwu Silly's expression twisted. Every empire and faction in the world would have a few outstanding great generals, but even amongst great generals, Gao Xianji was of the kind that made others envious. Even Abu Muslim treated Gao Xianji with great respect, so one could easily imagine how powerful he was. Gao Xianji, I've already released the hostage. Do you want to destroy our agreement? Duwu Silly's heart tightened. He had had some doubts before, but Gao Xianji's reaction had dispelled all of them. If this were not the real secret to formation phenomena, a supreme great general like Gao Xianji would not have been so nervous and made to take it for himself. Gao Xianji, don't even think about it. Duwu Silly exploded all the power in his body. Discarding any thought of fighting with Wang Chong, he rushed with astonishing speed toward the paper in the air. Duwu Silly had reacted quickly, but there was someone whose speed exceeded even his. When Duwu Silly had counted to 2, Huashu Huizong had already readied to strike. However, while his original targets had been Wang Chong and Chen Bin, Huashu Huizong had now changed his target to Gao Xianji. The earth shook as a dazzling golden saber energy slashed through the air at Gao Xianji. Boom boom boom. The air rang out with the explosions of their clash of energies, and dust quickly shrouded the field. Damn it! My formation phenomena! Duwu Silly's face was filled with anxiety as he unhesitantly unleashed a tremendous wave of golden stellar energy into a golden barrier to keep out all the shockwaves. Duwu Silly had decided to use his stellar energy to block the energy from the clash between these two imperial great generals. Bzzz. Lunging forward, Duwu Silly stretched out 2 fingers, caught the paper, and brought it back into the safety of his palm. When he felt the rough texture of the paper, he felt like a great weight had been lifted off his mind. Let's go! With the last part of the formation phenomena in his hand, Duwu Silly immediately used the Celestial Wolf's divine procession to shoot like a lightning bolt into the distance. He seemed to have even forgotten about Qin Bin. Of course, what was most important was that Duwu Silly had already spotted an enormous beast approaching the battlefield. Roar! Before anyone could react, the roaring behemoth dropped down from the skies, crashing like a meteor into the earth. Giant ape! The sight of that enormous black silhouette made Shamask and Chechen Benba tremble in fear. They lost all will to fight and immediately broke away from Chang Qianli and began to flee. The giant ape's strength was unrivaled. Even great generals were no match for it, let alone brigadier generals like them. You think you can run? Without leaving anything behind? Wang Chong sneered at this sight. If Shamask and Chechen Benba dared to attack Qin Bin, they would not be allowed to so easily retreat. Bang! With this thought, he threw the Vajra pestle, which streaked like a comet into Shamask's backside. At almost the same time, the air howled as a massive boulder smashed into Chechen Benba. Wang Chong had ordered the giant ape to throw this boulder. Bang! Bang! Shamask and Chechen Benba screamed as they were struck from behind. Vomiting blood, they fled even faster from the battlefield. Roar! The giant ape roared as it leaped into the air and began to pursue the Tibetan and Turkic soldiers. This time, the giant ape was not empty-handed. It now wielded a giant cudgel 10-some meters in length. When the cudgel moved, the air would shriek around it. Go, go, go! Run! In the distance, the Mutri Great Cavalry and Celestial Wolf Cavalry had long been wary of the giant ape. Although the giant ape had always been some distance in the rear during this exchange, all of them had been paying close attention to it. To these elite cavalry, the greatest threat was not great generals like Wang Chong or Gao Shenji, but this giant ape. Gallop! In a cloud of dust, the countless cavalry rode off like a retreating tide, leaving faster than they had come.